So hi everyone, this is Mary Kurek, and as you know, we are doing an interview for Frontrunners Innovate magazine, and I have the distinct pleasure of re-meeting someone that I had met a few years ago in person, and she is a world-renowned expert on dementia and has a really different focus on how you work within the dementia space and how you treat people with dementia. And I think it's probably one of the most useful events I've ever been to that had to do with aging related memory diseases, that sort of thing. It was really a personal sort of experience for me, Teepa, because my mother had dementia in the end, and she had some other mental health illnesses. So this what we're doing today, I'm so excited about, because I want to get into the business side of what you're doing and also talk about what offerings you may have to help people as well. So welcome, thank you. And
thank you.
I know we'll have a little bit of bio information on you, but the first question I wanted to ask you, and I'm not sure I ever knew this before, is when did you and dementia as a subject meet the first time?
Okay. Well, let's see. It started when my grandfather moved in and I was a kid, and my mom was a phys ed teacher and art person and a crafts person, but not a caregiver ever. That was never her thing. Even with kids, she wasn't much of a caregiver. She'd leave you at home sick with a trash can, a thermometer, and a telephone, and a bucket of water, and so that if you threw up, you could throw up in the trash can. If you needed to call her at work, you could. I mean, she was
That's practical.
Yeah. So when my grandfather moved in, he had the beginning signs. Now we would absolutely identify it as dementia. At the time, it was he's not right. I mean, he's getting weird. Grandma died, Grandpap got weird, and we couldn't leave him in Cleveland, Ohio. We had to bring him back near Pittsburgh. And so I got to be his care person because I was a better match for supporting him than my mom was. Though we at the time never understood it as dementia. It was just Grandpap had emphysema and black lung disease, and he doesn't think right. No awareness. This was progressive. This was vascular dementia. This is not going to get easier. It's going to get harder. None of that. But that was the first intro. Later on, my grandma on the other side developed probably what now we would know as Alzheimer's disease. Back then, she had the hardening of the arteries, and she just got me. So, because I'm on the older side, so we really, nobody much understood it until when I went to school. We were starting to really talk about senile dementia, Alzheimer's type, or organic brain syndrome. And when I became really interested in occupational therapy, I had already worked in a day center for kids with developmental disabilities and elders with dementia. So I'd already done some of that as a volunteer and as a young helper. And I was a nursing assistant before there was certification. And I worked with plenty of people who had brain failure, but we didn't really call it dementia back then. She's just not right is the most common, she's just not right anymore. It was the most common phrase. So when I became an occupational therapist and I taught at the UNC School of Medicine, that was probably part of a teaching nursing home project. Probably the first time we really dug into it. It's probably when I first started really learning a lot about dementia as a phenomena.
Wow. You have a relationship with dementia. I mean, it's clear that it's kind of pointed
close
to
and personal. Then I worked with the Alzheimer's Association. I've had care situations. I did head injury. I worked in rehab at Duke, which is like that special care center where people get sent when they have special rehab needs. And UNC, so lots of background. And so I've just been more and more fascinated by brains that don't work right. And how do we support people who are doing the best they know how with what they got, which isn't what they have.
It's extraordinarily challenging, but it's interesting to me because I look at it as kind of like and I hate to make that correlation, but sometimes like mental health diseases that have several different types under one umbrella. So I know that there are different types of dementia. My dad had vascular dementia, And I don't know what my mother's was, other than we wondered if it was correlated to the fact that she was fourth stage COPD and maybe wasn't getting enough oxygen, that maybe things were, you know, killing brain cells or something.
Yep.
So, and she could get, let's just say, I won't say violent, but very, very angry very quick. And
her brain didn't work. She didn't like her brain not working. She didn't like people around her when her brain didn't work. She didn't like feeling incompetent and inadequate. And she didn't realize sometimes it was her. She would think it was you guys and what you were doing and how you were doing things. And, yeah.
Always.
And that's hard to figure out if you don't understand how brains function and malfunction. And it's hard to know what to do when somebody's so angry with you. And it's like, I didn't do anything.
Well, so I didn't know if there is there somewhere like a chart of the different dementias, or is there, how do you know what kind somebody has unless you go get them checked, right?
Yeah. So Mary, that's one of the really interesting things that when I was starting to do this, it's like, well, you know, like, why does it matter? And it's like, if you're living with it 24/7, trust me, it does sort of matter, because if it's vascular, then, you know, whether her O2 is on and working well is going to be a big factor, but so is her blood sugar, and so is her fatigue, and so is, you know, whether or not she gets a rest in between here. And so learning about the different dementias, I became more and more aware we need a central location that brings up the umbrella. I mean, there's an umbrella of dementia, and then there's all kinds under there. And this thing, it's like, what does it matter? It does, because if you're going to be providing support and care, whether it's physical or whether it's emotional or whether it's physical, it really helps to know what you're looking at. So is this symptom part of their dementia symptom profile, or is this just part of who they were, or is this something else going on? Is this anxiety or depression, or is this malnutrition?
It's not a one size fits all.
It's not. And when you're the care person, I mean, when you're trying to help somebody, the more you know about this stuff, it turns out the more empowered you are to be different, to support their difference.
Fantastic. And so that leads me into what a great message deliverer you are. And that's the way I would put it, rather than speaker, because anybody can speak. But when you have a message that's that deep, that really is impactful to people's lives, instantaneously impactful, because when people have that knowledge, then they are empowered right then. I've seen it happen. So tell us how, what your message actually is, or what parts are involved in how you get people to think differently about this, and then how you're bringing it forward. Give us that little bit of, tiny bit of history that shows where you brought it forward and onto the stage, basically.
Yeah. So one of the things about dementia, people view it as, oh no, it's like the old cancer word. When you hear the word cancer in the old days, it used to be, oh no, she's going to die. Now we hear dementia, we go, oh no, she's going to be lost. We'll never see her again. We're going to lose her. And it's like, well, sort of, but let's not give up so quick, because one of the realities is, even when I die with dementia, 1/3 of my brain is still there. It's just not enough to run everything. And until I die, I'm here. I'm not how I used to be, but I'm here. Can you be with me? Can I be with you? And the answer is only if you're willing to change to match my brain change. Only if we're willing to modify an environment to match my environmental need changes. Only if we match how we spend time with how I can tolerate time being spent. And here's the deal. It's not a 1-for-1. We're going to need a team to support someone whose brain is changing, because your brain runs everything. And we do the best we can with what we have. So if we want something to change, they're already changing. We're going to have to be the thing that changes. Or I've got to find somebody who's good at changing to match. Because it turns out for every part of brain that is missing, there's still parts that are there. And people use what they have left, which means if I'm swearing at you, I've got that left. And what I'm sharing with you is I don't like what's happening. And what I don't have is the language I would have used, and the impulse control I would have used, and the logic I would have used. I'm trying to share with you my distress of. So it's like you could say, you are furious about this. This is so frustrating. And as soon as you say that, the person who has dementia goes, yeah, instead of, you don't understand, because guess what? I just showed you I did, with my visuals, with my verbals, with my acknowledgement of your pain, because you're in pain right now. And all I'm going to do is say, you're absolutely right. That hurts, not being this is so hard. I hate it for you. And now all of a sudden we're partners rather than enemies, fighting with each other about your brain change. Because I can't fix it and you can't fix it, but boy, I can support you and acknowledge. But then I need to go take a break because, whoa, that was work. That's hard work. And I think we don't figure that out till way too far in. And then I don't like what's going on, but it looks like I don't like you. And the problem is I'm just not liking this dementia at all. And it's like, got it.
You've got, that is a terrific message.
That was it.
You've got it going on. And it is a shift, and it's really super hard, having kind of been there, done that, and members of my family also. And I know other people who are experiencing the same thing.
One more thing, because I just happened to go, you made me think of one more thing. Not everybody's meant to be a hands-on person who supports people living with dementia. I can love someone and not be a good match for a care partner. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means it's not a good matchup for us. Like my mom with my grandfather. But some people are. And it really, part of the goal is to find good matches and to recognize, maybe I do another job. That's good. That's okay. This guilt that people carry around with dementia is not helpful for anybody. I mean, it serves no useful function, and it actually predisposes us for our own health issues. And that's, why do we want to do that? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. What would you say is the big shift here? Because I feel like what you do, the work that you do, is innovative. And it's a shift in the way people view things from, I mean, not so far in the past, how we were coming along going, oh, she's not right, or she's getting senile. It hadn't been that long ago that we were talking about it that way. So
no, it isn't.
How do you you figured out this paradigm shift that people need to make. Yeah. So how do you get that message out there to everybody? I mean, I know you're on the stage when you can be, but what else you got going on?
We're doing a lot virtually, and it turns out my style of presentation engages people even virtually. I can ask, so Mary, if you're thinking about helping, somebody make a difference, do you think it's better to tell them what they should do or ask them what they're currently doing as a starting place?
Ask them.
Probably asking what they're currently doing. And that pause that I had in there is to get you to want to answer me. And so what happens is, in the comfort of your own home, you're answering my question. And then I can get your brain to take another step and then another step. So it turns out we're doing it with organizations around the world, but we're also doing it brain by brain, because dementia is brain by brain. And helping people recognize, wow, there's another way of looking at this condition. It's not all about loss, it's about retained abilities. And it's also about relationships and figuring out what the new one needs to look like, and environments. And how do we change an environment to be more supportive and less restrictive and less problematic? How do we do that? And the answer is, there are things to know, but you aren't born knowing them. And it's hard to go find them, because this is new territory. This idea that there is a way to help people living with dementia other than just putting them somewhere or giving up or saying, oh, there's nothing you can do, is like, yeah, there is, lots. And the sooner we recognize brain change for what it is, the sooner we can start going, okay, well, let's look at how much distress you're living with, and let's see if we can adapt so that doesn't happen so fast.
There are, as you know, because you travel the world, and so you see lots of different ways that, say, memory care units and other facilities handle this type of thing, and also probably tripped across some pretty cool innovations that are helping. From aging services standpoint, in my past, I like Dementia Live. I thought that was very useful to be able to put yourself literally in the shoes of somebody. And feel the different symptoms, the not being able to see very well, can't hear very well, can't assimilate your instructions and things like that very well. What do you see out there that's innovative that either should come along or is already in place and working well?
Yeah, I think some of the things that we're starting to see where communities are saying, wow, the number of people that are going to experience brain change, and the boomers, we need a new plan. We are not going to be able to build enough locked, secured spaces. How can we make this space more possible? How can we teach ourselves to be more okay and supportive? How can we recognize I may wait, in 50% of cases, the first person to notice the change is us. And rather than going, oh God, I gotta hide, I've got to, I'm having some brain change. What kind of things should I be doing to get this sort of dealt with and then support living? And I think what we're starting to see is people are starting to notice sooner that something's not the way it used to be, but it doesn't mean my life is it in the ending thing. I'm not that far into it. So how do we create environments and communities that acknowledge there's not some hard line in the sand that's dementia, not dementia. It's things are starting to shift. How do we support one another in good ways? How do we help one another? And it could be technology. Technology has a role to play here. Passive observation systems that may say, hey, Teepa, you left the front door unlocked. And it's like, crap. And it's like, yeah. Oh, let me go lock that. Hey, Teepa, on your way to the front door, I think you might have stopped off. And let's go look at that front door and check and see if it's locked. And that's the voice on the overhead going, it's Siri, but it's a more skillful Siri going, hey, Teepa, you were heading to the front door. Go take a look. And it's like, oh, crap, I left it standing wide open. Oops. So I think technology is going to have a role to play, but so are we. There are times when technology doesn't replace human beings. We're a little more adaptable when we're
I heard one gal who was helping to look after her aunt. Aunt was in early stages, but had the situation of kind of wandering off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she still had her driver's license.
Yep.
So when she wandered, she could drive off.
Story.
So they would, have this app and the GPS thing attached and all this kind of stuff. So they know where she was all the time. And so they didn't have to worry about that. But I thought that was kind of ingenious the way that they figured that out.
Starting to recognize the value of technology because it's a tool just like any other tool, like our eyes are tools, or our mouths are tools, or our hands are tools. So getting the right tool out of the toolbox at the right time and recognizing what needs to be in my toolbox if I'm going to be called upon to be somebody, or what tools might I want in my toolbox if I'm the person who needs support? What do I want to arrange before I need it? So,
it's a quality of life issue, but it's also for both sides, quality of life. Like you say, you've got to be able to rest yourself. I think this kind of thing is so important that I think it's going to take a whole generational shift to understand that we're, I don't know what the statistics, you probably know what statistics are of people getting, having brain change or dementia going forward, but it's kind of scary to me to think that there's so many of us could be on the other side of this whole wall.
The mirror's there. Which side am I on? Who knows? But that's where, let's talk about this thing. Let's not be scared of it. It's like being scared of cancer doesn't keep you from getting it.
Yeah, no, really.
Actions speak louder than words. So let's start taking action.
So what would you say to those people out there, whether they're in technology, whether they're in pharma, whether they're in, advocacy, or some, maybe they're at nursing homes or memory care units or wherever they may be, where they feel like they have a certain process or a way of doing things that's maybe working better than anywhere else and they want to get it out there. What would you tell these people? What do you think is the most pressing issue and what they can do to help?
Yeah, so the most pressing, what's the most pressing? Probably acknowledging the person living with has got to be the center of the puzzle here if we're going to try to figure this out. Simply building a better mouse trap and all we're doing is trapping the mice, that's not going to move us forward. Hearing from people who are living with dementia and respecting their voices and acknowledging she goes out because she's seeking something. Wonder what it is she's seeking. Curiosity is the gift that we have. It's also the detective's symbol is we have to be curious. We want to be really good detectives. We don't need any more judges. I mean, judging people and finding them as being less is not helpful. So finding that curiosity and go, you know, I'm doing this and this seems to be working well. The phrase is, tell me more about that. Because if we're open and curious about what somebody thinks is working, when we hear more, we'll either go, I would be interested in trying that, or, ooh, that's going in a direction I wouldn't be comfortable with. Trying to find a medication that sedates someone, I'm interested in finding something that supports someone in not being distressed, but that doesn't mean I want them sedated. So learning to be curious enough so you learn enough to make better choices in this world we call brain change and dementia.
Well, you know, when we were, right before we came on, we talked about some of the offerings that you have on your website, which I think is fabulous. I checked it out myself. So you have some opportunities for people to engage in webinar or some one-on-one with Teepa.
We have consulting, we have webinars, we have recorded, we have certification courses. We have pretty much the gamut, free to cost significant chunk of change, but it gives you a significant skill set. So we try to meet needs wherever they are, and it's not meant to be a barrier, it's meant to be an offering.
Tell me about the certification classes, please, real quick before we finish up.
Yeah, so we do 3-day training chunks, and in those 3 days you are assigned a mentor. And after the course, you're not done. It's part of this learning process to be a trainer, to be a coach for people to develop skills, to be a consultant, to help people figure out challenges, and to be an engagement leader, to realize people have to fill 24/7 and we got to balance this. So we have a variety of certification courses because there's lots of different roles people need to play in the lives of people who are living with dementia, and families who are trying to help, and professionals who have been doing it one way and are going, I don't like how this is going. And the only way to change is to change.
This is fantastic. It's innovative, it's creative, it's a shift in the way people think and the way that they should do. And I love the fact that you actually are putting some classes together and that you have it sort of certification level classes so that people can, you know, get knowledgeable. And that's probably the best way right now, is getting that knowledge out there and getting more of those people trained out there so that they can train others. And
that's what we're finding. People who can do it can then make a difference with others. It's spreading the skill set around.
We're going to drop in the website link in this YouTube and also on Frontrunners Innovate, the website. So follow it along and stay tuned with Teepa, because honestly, she's not going anywhere. And as soon as she can get back on a stage, you're going to see her around the world. Thank you, Teepa. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks, Mary. And thanks for the opportunity. And thanks for doing what you're doing. It matters.